And when I came out of the restroom, I found him in the kitchen with a drink that he had made for me. I didn't want to offend him, so...
What would you do if someone you trusted turned out to be your worst nightmare? For the women who crossed paths with Dr. Stephen Matthews, a well-regarded Denver cardiologist, this question became a haunting reality. Matthews seemed like the perfect catch, a successful doctor with charm, intellect, and charisma. His dating app profile painted a picture of a respectable professional, someone who could heal hearts both physically and emotionally. But behind the comforting image lay a disturbing truth. Matthews wasn't seeking love or companionship, he was hunting his next victim. With calculated precision, he would lure women to his home, offering them a drink that soon turned their night into a hazy, fragmented nightmare. Stephen Matthews, a respected cardiologist in Denver, appeared to have it all: a successful career, a charming personality, and a presence that made people feel at ease. His dating app profiles on platforms like Tinder and Hinge portrayed him as a smart, athletic doctor with a warm smile and a dog he adored. Women looking for genuine connections often found him appealing. He seemed like a man with stability and kindness, someone who'd be safe to meet for a casual date. The women who met Matthews came from various backgrounds: teachers, medical professionals, students, all leading their own busy lives filled with dreams and ambitions. Many of them were bright, accomplished, and, like most people on dating apps, hoping to find someone special. Matthews seemed to promise all that and more, drawing them in with his friendly demeanor and impressive career. With his title and charm, Matthews gained their trust almost effortlessly. After all, he was a doctor, someone people rely on in vulnerable moments. But his kind image hid something far darker. Behind his friendly conversations and caring gestures, he had a hidden plan. The women he targeted never suspected they were stepping into a trap, and once they accepted his invitation to his home, they found themselves in a situation they couldn't control or even remember. It was supposed to be a simple first date, a casual evening with someone who seemed safe and genuine. One of Stephen Matthews' victims, a young schoolteacher, met him through a dating app after a few friendly chats. Matthews suggested his place, saying he'd make them some drinks, and it sounded harmless enough. She thought she'd found someone who was not only a successful doctor, but also kind, attentive, and down to earth. His cozy Denver townhouse was well kept, with soft lighting and soothing music playing in the background. Matthews greeted her with a warm smile, instantly putting her at ease. They shared a few drinks, laughing and talking about their lives and aspirations. But soon, her laughter faded as an odd, unsettling feeling crept over her. At first, she felt a mild dizziness, but it quickly grew stronger. Her vision blurred, and it felt as if the room was closing in on her. She tried to focus on Matthews, but his face appeared hazy, and her own voice seemed distant. Every muscle in her body felt heavy, and within moments, she could barely sit upright. She knew something was wrong, but her mind was slipping away like she was falling into a dark, uncontrollable haze. When she finally woke, hours had passed. She was in Matthew's bed, her clothes disheveled, feeling an overwhelming sense of confusion and dread. Her head throbbed, her mouth felt dry, and her memories were scattered, with only flashes of the previous night coming back in fragments. She remembered his face above her, but nothing else felt clear. The feeling of being stripped of her own memory and control left her shaken to the core. She tried to piece together what had happened, but it was as if her mind refused to fill in the blanks. As she stumbled out of his townhouse in a daze, her thoughts kept racing. She couldn't understand what had gone wrong, how a simple drink with someone she trusted could end this way. The confusion and shame lingered, accompanied by the haunting feeling that whatever had happened was far more sinister than she could even comprehend. Her story, as she would later learn, was far from unique. The disturbing pattern of memory loss, violation, and the chilling aftermath was just the beginning for Matthew's victims, who would each awaken to the same nightmare in his home. The investigation into Stephen Matthews' crimes began when a single woman, shaken and determined to find justice, came forward to the Denver police in early 2023. She recounted a horrifying experience of blacking out after drinks at Matthew's home and waking up with fragmented memories of the night. She knew something had gone terribly wrong, and as more memories came back in brief, disturbing flashes, she realized she'd likely been assaulted. Fueled by a need for answers and accountability, she reported Matthews to the authorities, hoping her story would be enough to stop him. What followed would reveal a pattern of horror that left investigators stunned. Denver police took her report seriously, and an immediate search warrant for Matthews' home brought shocking discoveries. Investigators found various sedative drugs and small vials commonly associated with anesthesia, substances far stronger than typical medications. The chilling discovery of several videos and photographs Matthews had taken without his victim's knowledge made the case even more disturbing. These images captured women in vulnerable, incapacitated states, barely conscious or entirely unconscious, clearly unable to consent. With mounting evidence, police suspected that the extent of Matthews' predatory behavior might be far larger than initially thought. Following a public appeal, 9 more women courageously came forward with similar accounts. Each of them described Matthews as friendly and respectable, someone who earned their trust before inviting them to his home. The stories echoed one another: drinks that tasted slightly off, a rapid descent into confusion and memory loss, and waking up with gaps in their memory, feeling violated and disoriented. Some of the victims shared how Matthews would later dismiss their concerns, blaming their experiences on too much alcohol or their supposed low tolerance. This gaslighting tactic worked on many of his victims, making them question their own memories and blame themselves for what had happened. "He made me feel like I was just being dramatic, like I was the one who couldn't handle my drinks," one woman testified, her voice filled with frustration and pain. "But deep down, I knew this wasn't right." Investigators noted that Matthews used his position as a doctor to his advantage, subtly manipulating the women into believing his version of events. He often told them they had simply had too much, making them feel guilty or ashamed, further keeping them from seeking help. In court documents, a lead detective described Matthews as a skilled manipulator who preyed on vulnerability and used his charm to mask his true intentions. The detective added, "He didn't just violate these women physically, he tore apart their trust in themselves and their memories. His methods were cruel and calculated." The investigation uncovered that Matthews had been systematically drugging women for years, taking advantage of their trust to manipulate them for his own gain. One of the most damning pieces of evidence was the collection of trophies, videos and photographs that Matthews kept, as if preserving his control over them. These recordings showed Matthews interacting with his victims in their incapacitated states, often capturing moments where the women attempted to resist or regain consciousness but were too impaired to react. The investigation's depth left no question about Matthews' intentions. The drugs, the videos, the consistent pattern of behavior. Each piece of evidence painted a grim picture of a man who showed no regard for the lives he was destroying. Police and prosecutors worked tirelessly to compile a solid case, using victim testimonies, physical evidence, and Matthews' own recorded footage to ensure justice. What started as one woman's courageous report had grown into a larger movement, with each victim finding strength in numbers to stand against Matthews' manipulation. As one prosecutor put it, "This is more than a case about assault, it's a case about power and how far someone was willing to go to satisfy their own twisted desires." By the time Matthews was arrested and charged, he faced 35 counts, including sexual assault, drugging with intent to harm, and evidence tampering. Each charge represented not only a crime but also the silent pain of his victims, who had endured a nightmare that Matthews had carefully crafted to keep them silent. The investigation was only the beginning of a long journey toward. As investigators delved deeper into Stephen Matthews' case, disturbing details came to light, revealing a deliberate and terrifying pattern. Matthews didn't just want a typical relationship. His intent was something far more sinister. He would lure women to his home, where he had control, then slip drugs into their drinks, rendering them helpless. His goal wasn't just to incapacitate his victims, but to ensure they had no memory of the assault, leaving them unable to question or accuse him clearly. One of the most unsettling discoveries was his collection of trophies, videos and photos he secretly took of his victims while they were drugged and unable to consent. These images captured moments where the women were visibly struggling or barely conscious, images that Matthews kept for himself, as though each was a reminder of his control over them. This collection left no doubt that Matthews' actions were planned, intentional, and worst of all, routine. During the trial, prosecutors presented several theories to explain Matthews' actions, with many suggesting his behavior was rooted in deep narcissism and a disturbing disregard for others' autonomy. His actions showed a twisted sense of entitlement, as if he believed he had the right to do whatever he wanted without consequence. His choice to gaslight his victims, telling them they drank too much or couldn't handle their alcohol, was another layer of control, pushing his victims to doubt their own experiences and remain silent. Was it power that drove him, the thrill of having complete control over another person? Did he see his victims as objects rather than individuals with rights and autonomy? These questions hung heavy in the courtroom, forcing everyone to confront the chilling reality of his manipulation. Matthews' crimes revealed not just a series of assaults, but a calculated, repetitive plan designed to strip his victims of their freedom, trust, and memories, all for his own twisted satisfaction. The trial of Stephen Matthews was intense, filled with emotion and painful memories brought forward by his victims. In the courtroom, Matthews faced the weight of his actions as victim after victim bravely took the stand, sharing impact statements that captured the depth of trauma his crimes had caused. These women, once filled with doubt and shame, now spoke with clear voices about the nightmares, trust issues, and emotional scars left behind. Many referred to him as a narcissistic monster who had shown no remorse for his actions. The judge addressed Matthews directly, calling his actions despicable and stating that he had diminished this world. The evidence was overwhelming, the judge declared, and it painted a clear picture of a man who repeatedly violated trust, hid behind his title as a doctor, and manipulated others to fulfill his twisted desires. Finally, the judge sentenced Matthews to 158 years in prison, a sentence that represented not only justice, but also an acknowledgement of the lasting pain he'd caused. As the sentence was announced, a wave of relief and applause erupted from the victims and their families, offering a small yet powerful form of closure. Denver District Attorney Beth McCann reflected on the case's significance, stating, "This sentence shows that those who exploit and manipulate others for their own gain will face the fullest extent of justice." She praised the courage of the women who came forward, noting that their bravery had ensured Matthews would no longer harm anyone else. For the victims, the sentence was a critical step toward healing, knowing he would spend the rest of his life behind bars, no longer able to prey on others. The trial marked the end of Matthews' reign of terror and a moment of justice for his survivors, finally freed from his grip. The story of Stephen Matthews serves as a haunting reminder of the damage caused when trust is weaponized. Relationships built on safety and respect are sacred, and when those foundations are broken, the impacts can be devastating. Matthews' crimes reflect a harsh truth that not everyone with a respected title or a charming personality has good intentions. This case highlights the importance of accountability and standing up against those who abuse their power. We invite you to share your thoughts on this case. What measures can we take as a society to protect others from similar harm? Join the conversation on safety, trust, and justice below. Your voice matters in building a safer world.